They're going to make bad decisions when they're out here on their own. But our job is to give them that information and create that structure and that give them that foundational information. So I think that, you know, with giving options and things like that, creating options, I think that is the only job that we have as parents is like for us to do that and steer them in the right direction and create a standard and make sure that we communicate that standard.
How do we get those standards applied though, right? How do we get them to realize like this is the standard and this is what it I don't think it's us. I think it's
You got
they
to
got to
live
get
by
it
the
from their
standard.
mom,
So
but from
so
us.
when I'm talking about a standard, you know what I mean. I'm talking about a standard of living and like a code, like a protocol, like almost like a bro code. You know what I mean? Like certain stuff that I will not do. And I live by it, and I'll die by it. So showing my kids that every single day, they know who I am. And everybody who knows me knows who I am. Like I'm me to the core. I've been the same dude since day one. So showing them that standard and telling them anything below that is unacceptable. And that's the thing that I try to pound in the head every single day to where when you like my daughter tells me all the time, like sometimes she be about to make a decision and then my voice pops in her head and she's like, God dang it. And now she can't even bring herself to do it anymore because I'm like ingrained in her brain at
And
this
I
point. So that's
think I
what I'm
think
talking about with the standard.
what supports that what supports that is also having the means and the options available for them to make the other decisions.
Definitely.
Right? You can't put a stamp on anything. You can't say don't do this or don't do that without having the other option available for them to do.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. Because desperate times call for desperate measures. So if you're in a desperate situation, you're going most of you make that desperate choice. So
I think you can kind of relate it to like if you look at like a sports team, like you think of different coaches like Greg Popovich or what I'm saying Belichick or even Tomlin. Like you come in and you create an environment, you know what I'm saying, and you set a standard in that environment. But what you do is you're constantly coaching and teaching, but you're also living it and you're not allowing certain things. You know what I'm saying? You're addressing issues. So like with the kids, like you come in, you address and you continue to teach, man. And it's a lot of teaching moments. And then like Scale said, a lot of it is going to be depending on what you do around them and how you function around them. Because you can tell them anything, but they're gonna watch you first. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta be the standard. You create the standard and you uphold the standard.
So are we saying it's basically the same plan for both raising your sons and your daughters? Because how do we keep our boys from hitting the streets, getting in gangs and that kind of stuff? How do we stop that?
So I think with the boys, man, I believe there's two ways. So this what I got a boy and a girl. And I don't father them the same way. Because my daughter I keep her close, but my son I gotta let him go. You know what I'm saying? Because there's certain things that he's gonna have to do, he's gonna have to learn. I just gotta teach him. So with the sons, to a point, it is it's that teaching, creating a standard, but to a degree, I mean, you gotta let him be a boy, man. You gotta. He's gonna go out, and he's gonna. It don't matter what you tell him and what you say, they gonna do what a boy gonna do, man. It's just what it is. Like I realized, like I was stupid till I was like 30. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm telling you, and I really realized it. Like, damn, man, and I see it in my son. Like that, this dude gonna be stupid for a long time. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna make some mistakes, but I just gotta mitigate the mistakes that he's making. You know what I'm saying? I could teach him and keep like going over with it over and over and over. But he at the end, he's gonna be a boy, man. And as long as I did everything I could do and I left it all on the field, it's up to him to make his own choices.
Anybody want to jump in on prevent your boys from hitting them streets?
yeah, 'cause my philosophy on parenting isn't gender based. So I'm not like I don't feel like I need to parent my daughters differently than my sons just for the sole reason of different gendering. I feel like I need to raise them different because they are different. Like their mindsets are going to be different. Like there's different human beings. So, like for instance, like my daughter, I parent her like some of you would probably parent your sons. Like I'm a little hard on it. Like I press her a little bit because I know that she's, you know, like I know that she has a level of intelligence and I know that sometimes she's lazy. So I need to push her and I need to, make sure that she's able to be a capable human being with life skills. Like so when you leave here, you're not just gonna leave here and get married and jump into a relationship and somebody's gonna take care of you. You gotta be able to take care of yourself in the interim of that, right? So I'm teaching her to be a capable human being independently that understands boundaries and that can be interdependent, in a relationship. Now my son, my son's only 9 months old, but I've been like, almost like a second father to my nephew who's like 14. And you know what I mean? I mentor a lot of young men through my job. And I'm always like, instilling certain things in them, like, teach them about having a base standard, like, figure out your price. You know what I mean? Figure out what you are willing to do and what you're willing to do to get what you want in life and put that baseline there. And anything beyond that, understand you need to walk away from it. So letting these young men understand that, there's things out here that, people are going to be pushing you to do, but you got to be able to stand on your word. So, teaching them values, teaching them morals, teaching them skills, and then also letting them understand what it is to be out here in the world and how to act and be a young man in the world, to be a leader, to understand what it means to provide and to protect. And those are the type of things that I'm teaching, my nephew and these other young men, just to give them that information of what it looks like to be a man and not just what they see on these videos and the TVs and things like that. So, and that might change from child to child. You know what I mean? Like my nephew, my other nephew, he's different. I'll say that. And he doesn't respond to some of that, that harsher stuff that I might, put on some others. So I gotta use a softer approach, and you know what I mean. And it works for him, and he responds to it. So you know what I mean. It's just different people take different approaches, man. Everybody has a different way of communicating that you got to kind of be able to do that, and it's definitely difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I kind of think it's I think you're right on people being different. But I also think Hit Me's right when it comes to keeping your daughter close and letting your son kind of venture out. So the method has to kind of be different on how you're applying those things, right? So for instance, I definitely think my strategy would be to give my son my skills and how I make money, right? And that way he understands his options on what he can do to make money, opposed to even being in the streets. Like, I think that happens when you don't see your options. You know what I mean? Or your friends is like, hey, we can go over and do this. Or, you know what I mean? We could do that and make a couple dollars. But I think if we start instilling options on how to be productive and make money from the time that we can, right? We are from up north. Well, I think Dex, you're from up north too. You spent some time there. We all shovel snow. You know what I mean? Went door to door, shovel snow. So we always seen other ways to kind of go and get a little something, opposed to selling drugs or doing anything like that. I'm not saying we haven't done it, but I think as long as we prevent the environment from being drastic enough to where they have to get a large sum, you know what I mean, and still give them the tools to make a little something for themselves, I think that'll be a good strategy. As long as because I know there's some parents, and I don't know if this is the right or wrong way. Everybody have a different way of going to approaching things. Some parents will make their kids pay rent and things like that. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it teaches them anything worth learning, but again, every kid is different.
Well, what about, so we can create the environment, right? And this is what I'm saying, as far as you just got to instill the environment, create the environment. But how many of us know somebody who grew up in a two-parent home, two-car garage, never really had any adversity, but came to the same hoods that we were at to hang out and do the same things, right? For no rhyme or no reason. That's just something that they wanted to do. Even though they weren't brought that, they had the example of the father, the example of the parent household. They still did, you know what I'm saying, went against it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. From my standpoint, I understand that. All I can do is, like you said, show him everything that I can show him. But in the end, he's going to have to make his own decisions. You know what I'm saying? And what I can do is, you know what I mean, you see a lot of parents, man, they get down, you know, it creates a situation within them because they feel like they fail. You know what I'm saying? They're feeling a failure. But I mean, you really can't fail, man. If you did everything you supposed to do and you leave it all on the field, man. You know what I'm saying? You played your best, you did your best with them.
So I'll say I definitely think environment is a big factor. Yeah, kids gonna make a decision one way or the next, but you know, raising a kid in the middle of like some like hood is different from raising a kid in, you know, Beverly Hills or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just different. It is, right? But if they choose to be around certain types of people that's doing, you know, the wrong things, and you find out, then I think it's kind of your job to show them the reality of like what that can lead to. So then, you know, hopefully they kind of put it together that they don't want to go down that path, right? So show them, you know, you could go to jail or you could get killed or, you know, whatever the case may be. Like these are the things that ultimately can happen 9 times out of 10 if you follow this path, right? Not everybody just gets to sing about it after they live that life. Like some people actually don't make it out. So show them that reality and then make them make a good decision because they have more information.
How do you show them that reality without them being in the reality? I mean, because it'll look like that's just TV.
Well, I mean, you know, because of our situation, I'm sure we all know people that probably are in that life or have been in that life that could be that voice that can, you know, give them that information, right? We probably know people who've been locked up for years and did certain things when they were, you know, younger and stuff like that. Show them the real side of, you know, what that path might lead to, right? If it comes to that. So you bring them to the source of, you know, the problem, right? And make them make
I mean, but for middle class kids, taking them to the source is fun. I love going to the projects.
I know
You know what I mean? Like that's where all my friends was. I remember being a middle class kid, and my mom, I asked her, I was like, "Can you move to the projects, please?" Like, you know what I mean? That's where everybody at. And she's like, "You don't get it. Later on, you'll understand." You know what I mean? But so taking them to that environment, I don't think is necessarily enough because, you know, like I said, we used to seek it out.
Yeah, you probably
that's the crazy part.
fun all the time, but you're not seeking it out if you're not having fun all the time, right? When the bad thing does happen one day, that's when you're gonna learn. Yeah, this is not really the way. This is not the move.
See, but that's the thing because it's funny because that situation is like me to the core. Like, right, so I came up 2-parent household. My great grandparents founded a church. Like, we got a family church. It's been, you know what I mean. I've gone to church my whole life. You know, parents teaching me X, Y, Z, and then I get to a certain age, around them teen years, and I'm rejecting all of that information. And now, you know, I'm kicking it over here, or I'm hanging in the projects, or I'm doing, you know, whatever I wanted to do because I just felt like that's what all my friends was doing. That's what everybody was doing that I was growing up with. And half of my family was living in the project. So it was like, we was kicking it down there. We was having a good time. So, you know, and that's another thing. Like, by the time your kid reaches that teenage, whatever you didn't teach them or you taught them by the age of 13 is about as much as you're going to teach them. Because by the time they hit 13, 14, 15, they ain't listening to you anyway. They listening to everybody else in the street. So, we got about 12 foundational years to instill some smarts in these dang kids before they start listening to everybody else. Like my daughter thinks, I don't know what, she thinks I'm the dumbest person in the world, clearly. Because she be listening to these people at her school like they're not the same age as her. Like they have not done anything alike. But, that's kids. You know what I mean? Their influences outside of the house sometimes are going to be louder voices than us in the house at a certain point in time. So for us, it's just like all we got to keep doing is just hammering down the same thing. Like I say the same thing every single day, like to the point where, like I'll start a sentence and then make her finish it. Like, you know what I mean? So you need to understand it. So even if you make bad decisions right now, you're going to. Like I'm hoping that at some point it'll bring you back. And it's just like when I was a kid, I was making these bad decisions, but I understood what the right decisions were. And then there was a point in my adult life where it clicked. It took a lot of years, but it clicked. And then, you know what I mean? I knew how to get back on track. So I think that's what we got to focus on, is just being that foundation, being that sounding board, letting them make their mistakes. Like y'all say, you'll keep your daughters close and let your boys roam. I'm gonna keep them both close. So I practice a thing I call structured freedom. You know what I mean? Where the amount of freedom that I give you is based off of what I see your comfortability level is. Like if I see any doubt in my kids, you know what I mean, then I'm like, oh, you ain't ready for that, and then I'll pull you back from it. But if I see you mad confident and you look like you can handle it, then I'll give you little bits of freedom here and there. And I just give structured freedom, and then I give teaching moments within that freedom. So if you make a mistake, I'll pull you aside and I'll let you know. So, I just think we got to be that sounding board. Let them make their mistakes, but, be there, to talk them through it. Let them fall, let them get up on their own and just talk them through it.
So that's one of the things, going into the next question though, right? How do we handle our kids making those bad decisions? Like if they end up getting locked up, if they end up being on a pole, those circumstances, happen, the worst of the worst or whatnot. How do we live with that? Like what would be a way that we can keep going and live with whatever devastation that happened at the, are we failures then, even after everything we've tried, or how do we handle ourselves mentally on that one?
I think I alluded to that earlier, man. I think so. Just like Scale said, right? He was given everything, all the right tools, but he still had to journey out and make a decision. Thankfully, right, he had enough those data references that was embedded in him that he can understand what was going on, and he made it back unscathed. But everybody don't always make it back, And as a parent, as long as you're making those needed sacrifices and you're creating those, and you're instilling those little data references that they know they can hear those voices when they about to do something, like, yeah, my dad told me about this, or damn, I knew this, At that point, you did your job, man. You can't be a prisoner with him. You know what I'm saying? Because you gave him everything that he needed. You was there to be the checklist. Like, hey, if you're doing that, this is gonna happen. Or hey, this is that. It's everything you told him, man. After that, I'm not gonna be locked up with you. You know what I'm saying? I gave you everything, and this is what you decided, and I'm not coming to get you. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I left it all on the field, man. I keep saying it, but to me, that's big, man. I know as a parent right now, I changed my work schedule. You know what I'm saying? I changed a lot of things that I want to do as a person, because I said, yo, I only have this much amount of time to make this impact on their life. And then after that, you know what I'm saying, I got the freedom to do whatever I want to do after. But for this block of time, I'm going to give them everything I got. You know what I'm saying? And because when they leave, I know that I did everything I could do, and the rest of it was left up to them.
Anybody got anything else?
I completely agree with that, man. Like, literally, if my kids leave this household and they feel like they don't have every bit of skill and knowledge that I have currently in them when they leave, then I know for sure they weren't listening to me because every single day is a teaching moment to me. Like my daughter gets tired of it. You know what I mean? So they're like, she's like, oh, another teaching moment. That yeah, everything is a teaching moment for me. Like I use those to be able to, instill certain things in their brain. Like, and I let certain stuff happen so that I can create those teaching moments and so that we can have that dialogue. So, you know what I mean? If you get to a point where you just made so many bad decisions that now you're locked up or now you're in a bad way, you know what I mean? And you're an adult, like not like, okay, you making these bad decisions when you 15 years old, because, those is just, prime time where you rebelling and you're going to make some bad decisions. But now you're a 30-year-old adult and you making these bad decisions, I did everything I could do. You know what I mean? I gave you every bit of information and knowledge. I gave you every opportunity. You know what I mean? And you still decided to make these decisions. And now it's like, I got to wash my hands of it. You know what I mean? And I feel like, so there's balance, right? So I feel like me as a dad, that's what I got to do. I understand my wife is probably going to be a whole different story. She's probably going to be back doing me, sending money and doing whatever kind of stuff. But for me as a dad, I got to be that firm, that firm person that's going to say, no, enough is enough. You're not going to keep making these bad decisions and then putting it on my back. You got to own it now. So that I feel like once you get to a certain age, if you're still making these bad decisions after all of that stuff that I instilled in you now, that's your, that's your stuff you got to deal with.
What if they're unable to
What do you
apply
mean?
all these lessons, right? What if they're unable to, actually
So you
follow
mean they're
whatever you've been teaching
intellectually
them?
deficient?
Say that again.
Are you saying they're intellectually deficient in some way?
To a degree, right? So I'm gonna be honest. So what I'm thinking about, my heart's a little heavy. I think I spoke to her earlier that we know somebody that kind of took themselves out, or today, yesterday, whenever this might have happened, and that's a real fear. You know what I mean? Like even dealing it realistically for me, and you understand what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, your child saying, you know what, this is too hard. I'm tapping out. I'm crashing out. I'm ending it. How do you live? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it still I wash my hands, or is it, at what point do you like, all right, I got to bring you back in because this may or may not go. This ain't going as I planned.
Yo, I mean, so I worked in the shop when I was like growing up, like 16, 17, and I worked around a lot of older guys. And there's a lot of little things they used to tell me that I didn't understand until I was in the moments. You know what I'm saying? But I would think back, like, and I'd be like, damn, I remember what's his name told me about this, or I remember this is something they said watch out for. And it may not, and I may have even still did the wrong thing, even though I knew it, but I still went back and referenced what they said. So whatever we telling them, it's in there. It's somewhere deep in there. You might try to, drown it out with weed or drown it out with alcohol or drown it out with the music. But what you instilled in them is still there. And it's gonna float to the top, man. You know what I'm saying? Even in the worst times and the hardest times, they're gonna go back and get that. And as parents, our job is to plant the seed and water it. And once it grows, man, it's on them to take care of it, man. Like I said, you can still be there. You never leave them. You know what I'm saying? But you can't be with them every moment. You know what I mean? You could just be there, you know what I'm saying, in your words and your teachings.
Dude, should we try to take some real medical? What do y'all think about? What's your thoughts about therapy, and how soon should we get our kids involved in the therapy process?
As soon as we're no longer able to be held accountable for some stuff that they might reveal in therapy, because I say that jokingly because my wife is always like, and I agree wholeheartedly. She's like, oh, we should probably get our kids in therapy. And I'm like, Yeah, you're right, because they probably dealing with some stuff that we can't even, we don't understand because they're not sharing certain stuff with us, and they got stuff going on. Well, what if they reveal some stuff to this therapist that got the police showing up to our house? So that's why I'm like, maybe wait till they're 18 and they're grown and the statute of limitations is out of here, and then we pay for them to get a therapist because right now we liable to go to jail for some of our parenting methods. But you know, like I said, all jokes aside, man, I think we all need therapy, man. I think that this the trauma that has been passed down from generation to generation in the black community calls for some therapy, or even just talking it out. Like, for a while I was seeing a real therapist, and it was great, you know what I mean. But you don't necessarily know these people, so you don't necessarily trust them with everything. And just us having our little men's group where we just kind of talk everything out and what I mean, express everything going on in our lives. That's been like the ultimate therapy for me, man. It's pulled me off of the ledge a few hundred times. So, what I mean, just having that environment where you can just express how you feel and speak things and feel, be able to feel vulnerable speaking this certain stuff, I think is important. So I'm all for the therapy thing, you know what I mean? As long as you don't parent how I parent, you might go to jail.
You got anything, Dex?
I mean, I definitely understand, kids it seems like, they're bombarded with all kinds of information. So things are very confusing to them, or things can be very confusing to them. So, having a place to vent and talk certain things out that they may not want to share with, the parents is probably a good thing. Lucky for me, I have a family member that's kind of does that role for my daughter. So, you know what I mean? Like it helps me out. But yeah, I guess it's good. Like, they should have a space where they can feel comfortable, talking to another person. And, at the same time, my source would definitely tell me anything that I needed to know if something came out that, was very serious for me to know. I know I'd find out about it and, be able to handle it as a parent afterward. Right. So, yeah.
I'm definitely I'm definitely not a fan of the therapy thing. But the men's group we have serves as and I mean it's from a legit stance, right? So like I've gone to therapy all my life, especially being a kid that was diagnosed with like ADHD early, right? So I had the special ed. So when you're in that, they make you go to therapy, psychologists. You have to go to that even to get prescriptions or whatever. So with that kind of history, I've never found it useful, beneficial at all. It was just like I'm here to do whatever I'm mandated to do, but as soon as this is over, it's over. But my peer groups have definitely been my therapy. Yeah, this is turning into that as well, right? So it's kind of all those little things like being vulnerable and with people who know you and can really speak to your character and saying this is you, this is not you. This is what you could do. You know what I mean? Those kind of things I think are way more valuable. But if you don't have that, which everyone's not blessed for that, if you don't have that, then definitely.
I was thinking earlier, man, and I just something I really was sitting out thinking, like, what has changed so much where suicides has become prominent within Black culture, because that was something that we never did, you know what I'm saying, previously.
I think it's my quick answer for that is God, man. We don't believe in God anymore. Like it's the like women now they're rising and they're into the moon, stars, and rocks now, right? So they're becoming little witches. Guys are they're on their own little thing. It's God. I mean, to be honest, I'm telling you, real talk. It's for me. The thought of spending an eternity in hell, I don't know if I'm all said it, but spending my eternity in hell have saved my life from suicide more than probably anything else. Like there's been plenty of times where I'm like, I'm gonna crash out right here. and like, is it worth it? Is it, is this rough moment worth all of eternity of whatever, you know what I mean? So, but but that's my belief in God. And I think now more than ever, God has been taken out of, our lives. And, if there was, or if you thought about it any other way, what would necessarily keep you here when things are tough?
But so check this out. So that's crazy, right? That's crazy that you said that. Cause like that's exactly what I was thinking. I said, yo, why, back in the day, everybody said you need to go to God or you need to go to God, go to church, right? But nobody really goes to church now because everybody say they spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Well, I don't go to church, I'm spiritual. And now you even see the churches, they're going online mostly. You know what I'm saying? They're taking people out of congregation because they know everybody's doing it online, right? But I think what's missing, right? There's been a social shift in how we communicate as people. You know what I'm saying? How we interact. Even like if you look at even how we text, it's starting to become almost like hieroglyphics. Like we're doing it all in emojis. But I think what was taken away, and you guys already talked about it, was like in church, there was like a community within it. You know what I'm saying? Where you can go to certain people and you can have those conversations. You know what I'm saying? Where you can cry out and you know what I'm saying, and release, and they give you enough, you know what I'm saying, to keep going. And if we don't have it in church, we'll find it in like his brotherhoods. We used to find it in granddad or grandma. And we talked about that on in a previous podcast, man. A lot of that's been taken away, man. You know what I'm saying? We missing those elders and those people, you know what I'm saying, that can understand, can talk to us, give us that unbiased, unjudgmental, and been through it and show you how to get out of it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing that we got to do to our kids. You know what I'm saying? We can just give them that, say we've been through it. Yo, this is what you need to do, and this is how you get out of it. And that's it, man. We can be that sounding board. We can be that person there for them. Like, you know what I mean, that they don't have to go to a professional. And I think, my kids went through a divorce. I want to get them to talk to a professional because they know how to get things out that we might can't get out. But I still think when it comes down to like our culture and what made us who we are, we gotta have that, you know what I'm saying, that society, that community, you know what I'm saying, that we can go to in times that where we're feeling like we don't have no answers.
Well, we already came to the conclusion that being the men we're trying to become, right, which is, the prototype dad, we have to contribute to the community, right? We have to be that for the community. So it's not just being the father of our home. It starts there, right? That's the practice, right? And then, but it bleeds out into the streets as well. So our neighborhoods, it bleeds out into the schools, it bleeds out into the teams we're coaching, it bleeds out into the jobs that we work, right? So I once we take that up, then I think things will change. And I think with our generation, things do change. I think the generation ahead of us, a lot of them were like, I'm here for myself, or that's none of my business, or just it's just necessarily like, why am I worried about another man's anything? You know what I mean? If he's a man, I'm a man, and I think it's something weird like that.
Yeah, I think this is it. I mean, it was we brought this up on the other podcast, but you know that that talk of the village and that talk of how the generations before us dropped the ball. You know what I mean? So there's this sentiment of almost abandonment where a lot of people in our generation was like had to kind of figure stuff out on their own and fend for themselves. So all they know is this self. They don't know the village. You know what I mean? They don't know how to bind together in a group and kind of make stuff happen. So now we're faced with this when we're talking about, trying to figure out ways to be almost a father to kids that aren't our kids, or be a father to the community. you know, when we have so many people who are in this selfish mode because they never had that. You know what I mean? So they're just like, they don't even know how to be that, or they don't value it. You know what I mean? And I think a conversation like this will help move some of that forward because there's a lot of situations where, you know, there's guys out here who either don't know their dad or don't have a dad around, or their dad ain't shit. You know what I mean? And you know, we talked about our neighborhood dad. You know what I mean? That we hold in, you know, high esteem and, you know, so much admiration. You know that he, like you said, he go down to the basketball court, put up new hoops. He reline the basketball court, and you know what I mean, clean up garbage in the neighborhood, and do stuff to just make it feel like a neighborhood and make us all feel safe. And you know, I feel like that's that's part of what we need to do in order to move things to the next level. And I even think that's a part of, you know, a part of therapy in itself because when you make people feel safe and comfortable in an environment, you know, and you make an environment more inviting and less hostile, you know, looking, you know, it creates that positive image in people's minds. So you might negate some of this negativity or some of these ill thoughts in people's minds just by changing their surroundings and their environment.
Yo, I think us growing up in our generation, the emphasis was placed on the lack of material. You know what I mean? On material things. In this generation, we gave them all the material, but now they're lacking substance. You know what I mean? Because to get the material, we had to leave the homes, and we had to put that substance that they need, man, that they missing. You know what I mean? In them homes, you know what I mean? That's loaded with the PlayStations and the flat screens in the car. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, they empty, man. And I don't know if they know how to reach out.
You got anything, Dex?
Not really, man. I mean, I totally agree. Like, you know, you gotta build a kingdom, right? Like we've been saying, right? So you do your part, influence the others, and hopefully they carry it forward, man. I always had a village around me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, my culture is a little bit different too. So you've seen it, you've witnessed
Right,
it
right, right. You
firsthand.
got a heck of a village around you.
Right. So
Yeah.
anytime, I needed something, there was always somebody that I could call or reach out to. So, I'm coming from that perspective.
Yeah.
The spoiled
I come
village.
from a similar perspective. You know what I mean? My village is really strong and bountiful. You know what I mean? But you know, like I said, I also come from that perspective of a hard headed fool who made his own decisions. And I probably needed, you know, tons of therapy. You know what I mean? Coming from in my little section of family, my parents were just trying to figure it out. They didn't have any answers. You know what I mean? And we I think who was it? Dave Chappelle who said, we were just uh we had just enough money to grow up poor around white people. You know what I mean? So it was like, we lived in a house. We didn't live in a project. You know, it was a 2 parent household, but we would, man, poor as all get out. You know what I mean? So, of course, me growing up, I'm looking at all these, kids in the projects. They got all the newest Jordans. They got all the newest clothes. They got all the newest everything. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, they living it up. Why? Shoot, I want to be down here. Not really seeing the other side of things. So, you know, being able to have those, that village and that sounding board. So when I get older, there's something that I can draw information from and really get understanding so they can kind of bring me back out of my own head, man. It means everything, and some people don't have that village. So, you know what I mean? I believe it's incumbent on us to create that, to be able to put that out there and be, the village for people who might not have a village, or at least be a positive voice, to be able to tell somebody something that might bring them back into the light when they might be, trying to go a little bit dark.
So to kind of wrap up, the synopsis here is provide the resources for both your sons and daughters. plant the seeds of knowledge. I think you said something earlier here. I think you said something about integrity or something like that, or values, right? Plant. I think everybody's been kind of hitting on that. You know, having the resources, install the values. You know, like this is not what we're supposed to do, and also giving some options, right? So options on how to stay out of, you know, negative decisions, or options on how to stay out of having to make money in negative ways, right? So I think that's the strategy: provide resources, so the environment's not bad, you know, so good environment, teach some values, and teach them some skills. I think that's where we're at, and I think that it probably applies to both our sons and our daughters.
Yep.
Anything anybody want to close on?
Hey man, I think it's more important than anything, you know, that we do all that, and on top of that, man, we make sure we tell them we love them, man, and they walk away, they know that we love them. You know, we just not providing for them from material standpoint, but that you really like tell your kids you love them, man. You know what I'm saying? That's huge. Like, how many times have you had a man tell you he loved you? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? A man that you looked up to. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's huge, man. Something that we miss a lot, man, is that we generally need to tell our kids, yo, we love them, man. This is what we doing this for.
I think you know, once the kid understands that the parent loves them, that's when they'll hear that voice when they're making those, or they're in those situations where they might make that bad choice, right?
That's so that's a whole nother. It's not a whole nother thing, but I didn't realize my own mother didn't love me until I got in trouble, and she popped up every day. Like, I went to like kitty jail or whatever, juvenile detention, and she was there every day, and I did not understand. I was looking at her like, why are you here? I didn't even think you liked me. So to that argument, right, understanding that somebody loves you, so maybe I shouldn't be doing this because somebody loves me. I think that's huge. Yeah, that's a huge point right there.
That's a major point. You know what I mean? Like, and then to take it a little bit further, like, you know when somebody loves you, so you don't want to let them down. You know what I mean? So you're doing everything you can to move correctly and to uphold the standard that was set forth, because you don't want to let this person down. And I think that was, you know, that's a major thing that I think about when I go back to, you know, my parents. Like, my mom, you know, the women in my family are super extra loving, man. Almost too loving for me, with the hugging and kissing and all that stuff. It's a little bit too much for me. But, you know, I can't remember a time where, you know, I ever heard my dad say, you know, I love you, son. You know what I mean? I can't remember a time. Like, the first time that I remember hearing my dad say, I love you, son. I'm proud of you, which I think maybe when I graduated from like culinary school or something like that. I don't know. It was I was grown at this point. So, you know what I mean? And maybe there's some memory, you know, loss, or, you know, some suppression of memory where I just don't remember it. And maybe he said it, or maybe he did stuff and he meant it, but he never verbalized it. But that was the first time that I could remember him verbalizing it, man. And it was a game changer. You know what I mean? It changed a lot of stuff in my head. You know what I mean? Didn't necessarily change my actions at that point, you know, but it changed a lot for me. So understanding that, hearing it, and you know what I mean, and connected to it, I think that is definitely what can help the kids get to that next level, man, and not being afraid to express that, man, as fathers, man. Like, I tell my kids I love them every single day at this point, because I want them to get to the point where they're just tired of hearing me say it. You know, not to.
I think another thing is you gotta know your kids' love language.
Yeah.
Because just telling them,
for sure.
What is that? You know, if they don't, you got to learn your kids' love language and really show them that, right? I think that's a huge key because I'm trying now. You got me thinking like, how can I make sure my kids know that I love them, right? And I have to show them love the way they see love
Yeah,
is. You know what I mean? Not necessarily me, right? Like I could feed them all day, and you know the heat is on. I could be like, oh, the heat's on. I take you everywhere. This and that. And they be like, I don't care about none of that. You didn't play the Atari with me. I said Atari, but you understand what I'm saying? Like you didn't play my favorite video game with me. You don't love me, or you know, or I don't have this, or I do need this, or we didn't cook together, or spend whatever time, or you never, you know,
yeah,
there's so many different ways that you can show love, and then I think we got to learn our kids' love language and express that as fast as we can,
yeah,
so they can then we can actually those seeds and the values that we're trying to get them to learn can be more effective so much earlier. And I think that's where I kind of messed up with my old maybe that she didn't understand my dad loves me. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
Yo,
yeah,
those seeds that you planted is water with love, man. You know, that's the
right,
force
and
that makes it
every
grow.
plant is different. And if you look like some plants need a lot of water, some need a little water, some need sunlight, some needs sunlight from not really direct sunlight. All that's different on how that plant's going to grow.
for sure, for sure.
I
Yeah,
didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. You got something. You just I'm in the groove, but go ahead. Well, I think we can pretty much close out there. Unless Deck, you've been a little quiet. You got something else you want to add to it, but
No, man, y'all said it. Y'all said it. Y'all said
I
everything.
mean, if I can, I would like to add on to that because
please.
that is something that I like. This whole love language thing, man. This is something that it's new to me, right? So for me, I just came up thinking, you know what I mean, that provide, protect, make sure everything is taken care of, and make things a little bit more manageable for things and for people in my house. And I thought that was communicating love, to the people in my house. Lo and behold, it doesn't communicate anything to them. So, my daughter's a big um physical touch person, right? So I could say I love you all the time, but if I'm not hugging her, you know what I mean? If I'm not embracing her, she doesn't feel the love. You know what I mean? And it took me a long time to really get that because I'm like, man, I'm going above and beyond. The Call of Duty over here is, you're just not, you're not, it's not resonating with you. So like, really being able to identify that, and I think it'll be easier with the daughters than it will with the sons because the daughters will communicate it with you. Like I had to find out from my daughter, letting me know, like, look, you know what I mean? You can't love me the way that you need to be loved. You got to love me the way that I need to be loved. And I was like, I'm the parent, like you don't be telling me what to do, but like that's the most profound thing ever to me because it was like, I'm an acts of service guy. You know what I mean? And that's how I give love and that's how I receive love. So I'm doing all these acts of service, man. I'm working my back to the bone out here trying to show you that I love you. And all you needed was a hug. You know what I mean? I'm out here trying to show, my wife, and all she needed was some words of affirmation. All she needed to tell her, hey, I love you. Hey, so I'm out here trying to show people in the way that I receive love instead of giving them the love in the way that they receive love. And it's life changing, you know what I mean? And that's how it is for each and every kid, each and every human being. They have their own love languages. Everybody's not going to be like you. Everybody's not going to receive it like you. So you got to be able to have that communication and have that relationship where you understand their love languages to give them the love the way that they need it. And I'll tell you, it's not easy at all because I fail every single day, every day. But, you know, at least knowing, I know where I fall short and I can try to work on it. So, I believe that's for each kid because, there was 4 kids in my household and we all lived through the same stuff and we all got something different out of it. Like we all have different memories that affected us. You know what I mean? And we talk about it, and it's like we didn't even live in the same house, but we did, and it's crazy. So just understanding that each kid is different, man, and your approach is gonna have to match the differences. I think that's a leg up that we have in this generation that most generations didn't have before us. Because I think everybody was just using that blanket approach where they were just, this is what we're doing. We're going to approach this. Then we're going to treat the boys like this. We're going to treat our daughters like this. And that was the blanket approach. But they weren't approaching it from a sense of individualism. Like, I'm going to approach this from a sense of how do I need to love you for you to feel love? And man, that really it changed a lot for me. But I digress.
Hey man, great convo. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate you guys. And man, I'm gonna have some new. I got a nice topic for next week. Something fire that we all can kind of like chime into. We're gonna talk a little bit about co-parenting next week. So. Yeah, we're gonna talk about those challenges next week, dog. You know what I'm saying? So
y'all will be educating me because I don't know anything about that life.
Hey, I mean,
I don't know anything either, but I have my ideas on it, so I'm gonna give them.
Yeah, that should be pretty nuts, man.
I'm in the field. I'm in the field,
and that's something that we're all facing at this point. So
I'm in the field. Front line it.
You and me both. but all right, fellas, appreciate you guys, man.
Right.
All right, fam.
Yep. Have a good night.
Okay, guys.